What's up, everybody? This is the P.E.A.C.E Baltimore podcast with your host, Jovani, Patterson, and Yuripzy Morgan. So P.E.A.C.E Baltimore, as you know, goes around the city. We do our town halls we call Power Up Series, and we hear a lot from the community on what's going on in Baltimore. And we said, hey, let's continue that and bring more to what we're hearing and have more people hear that. And that's the purpose of this podcast. Because we want to get more information out to the people. Also, power up our folks that are listening. And, we're going to have a little bit of fun, too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing, right? We hear from a lot of people. And then we wanted to kind of bring in the news, like the local news, what's going on, and reflect on what's been happening in the community.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and get started. But first, right, this week, Apple released the new iPhone. And so first off, are you Apple, Android?
Oh, Apple, 100%. Android drives me up the wall.
Okay, so now they're the big thing is that they're changing the charger.
Yeah.
Now, how do you feel about that? Because you might have a lot of lightning chargers or just the cords or whatever.
It threw me off when I first heard this. I always watch Good Morning America when the kids are getting ready.
Yeah.
And when I heard this come on, I was like, I don't know what a lightning charger is. Like, I know which ones fit and which ones don't, right?
Yeah.
And I do know that there was a time period, I guess when they went to the new charger, where I was so irritated because nothing, it's like nothing fits. I can't, charge anything. And if you're telling me that now we're going back to the old one, is that what we're doing?
No, so it's just USB-C. So Android has been on USB-C for years now.
Oh.
So now it's just kind of like standardized across. You can no longer say you need an iPhone charger. I just need a charger.
Oh, okay. Then I'm happy.
Yeah. So you already have some USB-C type chargers. Some other devices might.
I'm sure I do. I'm the worst person about this. This is why, I'm sure that Apple made a lot of money off people like me who didn't know what they were called, who, are not technologically savvy.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you're telling me that I need a new charger for whatever it is that I have, I was like, okay, I guess. I don't know.
Well, the cool thing is that you probably already have the chargers somewhere.
Good.
Now, if, there's some other crazy stuff that they might do that the chargers might not work, but we'll see what comes along.
The big thing is, can the people who one of our best friends, Tori Snow, who always sends me memes and TikToks, but they don't show up because he's an Android. Is that going to get fixed ever?
No, that's kind of one of those things that
of course we'll wait.
All right, so what's going on this week? What's happening? What's up first?
So I want to talk to you about this juvenile crime report. You probably have seen this. So for those of you who are listening, here's what happened. Obviously, we have a new governor, Governor Westmore, and he brings in his own people, right? Yep. So he brought in a man named Vincent Schiraldi from New York. He is he was I think a professor at Columbia University. He's been big on social justice issues. Mm-hmm. So this is the new. He's over the juvenile system in the state of Maryland. It's not just Baltimore. So his office just issued this report about juvenile crime across the state of Maryland. So not just Baltimore City, but across the state of Maryland.
Right.
And it has gotten so much backlash, not just from, conservatives or Republicans, but from Democrats as well. They held a hearing earlier this week because they were like, hang on, this report does not jive with what we are all seeing and experiencing in the community. So basically this report came out and said, everybody chill. Things aren't as bad as they seem. They came out with, these certain numbers saying that, juvenile crime is actually down, that the majority of people who commit crimes are adults. And we knew that. We knew that the majority of people who commit crimes are adults. But it did say certain really terrible things, like, for example, in Baltimore City, more young people are being killed at a higher rate than it has been in an entire decade. Now, we talk to people who will tell you that all day. But I'll tell you this. There was an interview that was done by WBAL's Phil Yakubeski. He spoke with Scott Schallenberger, who is state's attorney for Baltimore County, because what you've heard from a lot of elected prosecutors, police officers, that, look, these new laws that were put into place last year, voted on by the Democrats in Annapolis. And I say that because Democrats control Annapolis, And so they voted on these new bills, the Juvenile Justice Reform Act. There was another one having to do with Child Interrogation Protection Act.
Jill Carter, right?
Yes, Jill Carter. And I think it's very important that we specify whose bills these were. They didn't come out of existence. They didn't just spontaneously appear. They were written, drafted, voted on by real live human beings in Annapolis that many of us see on a regular basis. So I just wanted to bring up this clip because Scott Schallenberger brought up one of the biggest issues with this report, which is that the numbers are not, like, the math is not mathing.
Right. Thing that I think is very important for your listeners to know is that last year the legislature eliminated a number of crimes that individuals who were 10, 11, and 12 could be charged with as juveniles.
So I guess what is the goal of, I guess, changing these, changing this legislation or changing the way things are being reported? What's the goal?
That you've got to ask yourself that, right? Because what you just heard there, again, that was WBAL's Phil Yakubuski, and he was interviewing Democrat state's attorney, Baltimore County, Scott Schallenberger, about these numbers. Because if you've got this report that says, oh no, juvenile crime is down, but you have the state's attorney saying, okay, if you stop. So what happened with the Juvenile Justice Reform Act is that if you're under 13 years old, you're not going to get charged with these crimes anymore.
Right.
So guess what? If you can't charge people anymore, then you're going to have less charges.
Yes.
But less charges do not equal less crime. And so the question that you bring up, I think, is spot on. What are you trying to do by not giving us accurate numbers?
Yeah. I mean, but I think the people, especially when we do our town halls, the people really sense that things aren't, going the right way. Yet we have the people, oftentimes our elected officials and, these people in appointed positions telling us that our feelings are wrong. And what we're seeing, no, you're not, losing, your loved ones, your kids aren't really dying that much in the streets, or, it's not that bad that, businesses are being vandalized mostly by young people, or your cars are being stolen. It's really not that big of a deal, right?
Don't believe your lying eyes, Jovani.
Who are they trying to fool?
Yeah, and that's what, I don't understand, because I do not understand this mindset. But there is a particular mindset out there, and it's very, particularly in the progressive left, right? Yeah. And I want to make that distinction because you and I have a lot of friends who are Democrats. Yeah. This is not a political issue per se. This is not necessarily Republicans versus Democrats, because what we saw this week is that there was an outpouring of frustration from Republicans and Democrats saying this report is not accurate, right?
Could this be a unifier though of people, across party lines? Like when, like you said, the math isn't mathing. Is could that be a unifier saying something's got to give?
I think so. I think the fact that there was so quickly after this report came out, there just yesterday there was this hearing from state legislators, and they had a number of police chiefs. They also had elected state's attorneys there as well to talk about how these two bills in particular that were passed last year, and Jill Carter was the sponsor of the Juvenile Justice Reform Act. Then you have the other one, the Child Interrogation Protection Act. And, look at the list of co-sponsors on there. Yeah. You have people like Brooke Learman, who was a Baltimore City delegate and is now the state comptroller. Yeah. There's got to be some accountability. Like this mess that you created, and now we're being told, oh, there's no mess. But I think the question that you posed is exactly right. Like what are you trying to say? Because as I was saying, I think there's a certain mindset among the progressive left that when it comes to juvenile crime, that it's all about rehabilitation and none about punishment. And I don't think that's the way it exists. Now, it's very similar to what you had, with the Joe Biden zero tolerance policies, of the 1980s, which was no tolerance, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what did we end up with? Mass incarceration. Yeah. And I think the majority of people, you and me, and the majority of people that we run into in Baltimore do not live in the extremes. Yeah. They live in the middle where they say, no, a 9-year-old should not, end up facing 10 years in prison for something. But you can't just let them back out on the streets when they've been carjacking people.
Right. But some of these crimes are pretty heinous at this point. Right. I mean, and between not only just talking about the youth violence, but, just the boldness and brazenness of cars being carjacked into broad daylight, right? Businesses being vandalized on a regular basis. Like, there's got to be something, there's got to be consequences for the actions. And I think, what we're seeing is that my position is that, we're setting our young people up for failure because we're not providing consequences for negative behavior, and we're doing it now on a grand scale. So, to me, it's like, all right, what do you hope to come of these young people, right? If there's no consequences for their actions.
Yeah. That to me, again, when I say that there's this mindset among the far progressive left that there is no room for punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And any rational person, any parent will tell you that is not how it goes. Because, I have 2 little girls, for those of you who don't know, they're 6 and they're 8. They are my heart and soul. I love those, but I didn't realize until I became a parent how often I would have to say the word no.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Well,
no.
Yeah. No.
Correct.
Yeah.
but yeah, because why? Because children need constant correction, and children.
Well, they crave it.
Yes,
they crave it,
and they are line steppers, and they keep pushing those boundaries. Like, oh, I got away with this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they're not evil. They're not.
No.
They're not like incorrigible. But if you as a parent don't step in and intervene, then guess what? Eventually, law will.
Yep.
And that's where I don't want my kids to be in that situation where they're having to be corrected by a police officer because I did not correct them at home.
So, I mean, with that point, are we seeing where, I guess, the government is becoming more of the parents to these kids, especially with, the juvenile justice? So we need to be more heart-led on a public perspective versus, learning that stuff at home, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think I wouldn't even say that the government is trying to become the parent. They're trying to become like the fun uncle, It's like, yes, like don't tell your parents, we're like, I'll come bail you out of jail. We're not going to tell your parents. Like, no, they're, and we've got to remember that particularly in a city like Baltimore, where we do have a very high rate of single parent homes, and that's of course not saying anything bad about single parents, but there was a report or a article, an opinion piece in the New York Times, the New York Times of all places, by the way, that was saying, why has the left stopped acknowledging how beneficial it is for children to grow up in a 2-parent household? And that's because on a practical level, you can divide and conquer. Look, you cannot be 2 places at once, right? Yeah. So if we're going to be at work, like I'm here with you right now, I'm not with my children.
Right.
My children are at school. So I know that they're being taken care of. But when you are the only person that is having to do the job of a mother, a father, a disciplinarian, love on the kids and all this stuff, man, as a human being, come on. Like you can't stretch. There's only so many ways that you can stretch yourself.
Yeah. But one thing, I do think, just we have to provide discipline and direction for our kids. And in a lot of different ways, they're not getting it, whether it's so I'm a big fatherhood advocate. I believe fathers are necessary. And one of the, I guess, challenging things that we do see is the amount of fatherlessness in, particularly places like Baltimore City and a lot of our urban centers. And it's just, to me, I think we need fathers back in the home, fathers back around. If not, we definitely need more men to be stepping up as father figures in the neighborhoods. And there's a lot of, different avenues, I can discuss about that. But I do think from a, cultural, societal perspective, we do need more, fathers and men involved. That's my
well, because I'll tell you, like the fathers, it oftentimes provide, not that mothers don't, because I will be the first one to tell you, like my mother was a disciplinarian, that woman ran a tight ship. But fathers oftentimes provide that as well. Now, I will say, the other interesting thing that I thought about this report, aside from, the fanciful way that it presented our juvenile crime problem, was who presented it, right? So most people, I would say, didn't even know that Westmore lived in this state before he was running for governor, right?
Right.
And so we're all still trying to figure out, who are you? It's almost like like those shows, where people get married after their first date.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to figure out, like, so what, like, I don't really know a whole lot about you.
Is your favorite color orange? Or?
Yeah, exactly. Like there's just a lot of like getting to know you with Governor Moore. And especially with his policies, because when you hear Governor Moore talk, it's like if you could create in a lab the perfect speech with the perfect tone, that's what he delivers, but it doesn't give you a lot of substance.
Yes.
Like he never says what he feels on things. He takes, what is society supposed to do? And it's like, it sounds great. Yeah. But no, I really do want to know, like, what is your favorite color? You know?
Yeah, he's a very elaborate speaker
Mhm.
and says a bunch of nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
And you
when
can feel
it
good
comes
about it.
exact well, yes. And so here's the deal though, is that we are learning more about his philosophy, right?
Mhm.
Like what does he believe? I think through the people that he appoints.
Right.
And so, for example, this guy that he appointed to run the juvenile system is Vincent Schiraldi.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't know a whole lot about. I didn't know a whole lot about him. I started, looking, especially after this report came out, and I was like,
Yeah.
Like back up a second. Where is your mindset? And I'll tell you, according to the Baltimore Sun, he said this. We've seen what happened in the 1990s when fear of youth crime, particularly by young Black males, was exaggerated by the media. That it's very important that we do not make the same policy mistakes that were made and take a data-informed, deliberate approach based on best practices and research. Can I just say, by the way, I hate the term best practices.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those trigger words for me. It's like synergy. Like, ugh.
I got a video to show you that.
Well, but so that says a lot about his point of view.
Yeah.
Right. And when you take a look at this report and when you're like your question, why would you try to fudge the numbers like this? Like what's the point? Well, it seems from his own words that he seems to kind of be stuck in like this 1980s mentality of mass incarceration that we can't do any of these disciplinarian things because remember what happened when we tried it decades ago. But Jovani, we're not in the same place that we were in the 1980s.
No, I mean, look, there's oftentimes, that swinging pendulum, right? And oftentimes we do go too far one way, and then the correction is to go too far the other way. And
we
I think
overcorrect.
And I think we're in that overcorrection period where, we don't want to punish or these appointed, people in these appointed positions don't want to punish or seem like they're the bad guys. They want to seem like they're the saviors, if you will. But with everything, there has to be a balance, right? We have people, having to change their daily lives. I mean, imagine getting carjacked and then, you're on your way to work and you just put enough gas in there to get there. And you get paid on Friday and you got enough gas in the car to make you to Friday. And now everything.
Not only do you not have gas, you don't have a car.
Right. Yeah, you don't have a car and you had $13 in the bank, and you're I was reading the Maryland Constitution, a couple of days ago, and it was just talking about the rights.
Could you not sleep?
Yeah, but no, it's a good go to sleep material.
I'm just kidding. We should all do that.
But it's just talking about the rights of the victim, right? In justice, and regardless of who's committing the crime, unfortunately, there is a criminal aspect to every community society, right? There's good and the bad. There's the yin and the yang. But part of our Maryland Constitution says those that get victimized have the right to justice, right? And what we're essentially saying, in my opinion, is we're poo-pooing on the Constitution for these victims of these crimes for to avoid consequences for those committing the crimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here's the thing too, like we are very focused on the criminals and not the victims anymore. And there, some of the I've been in a courtroom. I have heard some of these impact statements is what they're made. So when a person gets convicted, then the judge oftentimes allows family or whoever the victims to make an impact statement, so that we can decide, okay, well, what is the sentencing going to be? We have a verdict now. What do we sentence you to, right? And that's when the judge hears, or the jury, might hear, like, okay, here's how this has impacted me. The fact that my mother was killed, that my brother was killed, or even, and I think oftentimes we ignore because we hear these carjackings, like the extraordinary amount of carjackings that there have been in Baltimore City, that it becomes just routine, right? Oh, it's another carjacking, another carjacking. When really, when you look at it on an individual basis, if my car was stolen today, I mean, first of all, I'd have to call my husband. He'd have to come get me. He'd have to come back from work in DC to come get me. My daughter has a doctor's appointment this afternoon, and that's just this afternoon's logistics,
right?
that's not even talking about the insurance, the money, am I ever going to see that car again? What is the insurance going to pay me for that car? Am I even going to get anything?
And then what's your insurance rate going to be afterwards?
Exactly. Mind you, I was sitting here minding my own business when somebody stole my vehicle, right? And when you listen to somebody or when you hear this statement by Vincent Schiraldi and you start to see the mindset that he has in approaching juvenile crime, again, he seems to be stuck in a very 1980s, which is not what we want to do. Mass incarceration is not what we want to do. But like you said, it doesn't have to be either extreme, but it's also interesting, I think, to note that this is the person and this is the mindset that Governor Westmore wants in this position, right? Still wants, because Schiraldi is still there.
Yeah, I mean, I think something came out before. I forget the source, but something came out. There was some report that came out on who he was, even before he was appointed. I think he was governor-elect at the time, and he was saying, okay, so these are some of the people that I'm going to bring with me. And when Mr. Schiraldi's name was mentioned, there was kind of this. There was some report done or background on who he was, but he believes that the particularly young people's minds aren't fully developed until age 25, 26, which may be true. And
developed though.
But they're not able to make, good decisions. Right. Mm-hmm. So it was like this mindset. And that's the reason why a lot of the young people get involved in, to the criminal justice, or not just in, a life of crime or what have you. Yeah. It's because they can't make good decisions. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, the last I checked, right, my 5-year-old knows what a lie is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. He knows he's not telling the truth.
Yeah.
Right. Now, mind you, there may be times he still lies, but he knows this isn't the right thing to do.
Right.
And the same thing, and we're not talking about simple lies with a lot of these young people now. We're talking about 10, 11, 12-year-olds carrying guns, carjacking, killing each other. Mm-hmm. Do you not know that's not the right thing to do?
Yeah.
I mean, do you know that there's lasting consequences for this? And I think with this mindset, we're telling these young people that there aren't lasting consequences with this. When you take someone else's life, it's just okay. You weren't able to make the right decision at the right time.
Yeah. Look, nobody's arguing that you made the wrong decision.
Right.
We are, but and I think it's almost like it's the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yes.
Particularly for young people. Now, again, they keep pointing to the science. Oh, their brains aren't fully developed. I'm not arguing that their brains aren't fully developed. I'm saying an unfully developed mind can still tell you right from wrong.
Yes.
Right. And as they develop, if you are developing them towards this mindset that there are no consequences, you are not doing anybody any favors.
Absolutely.
And that is not how this works. Like, it's just like you said, and it's not even just children, like I have a 6-year-old who knows very well that she is supposed to put her laundry in the basket every Friday so that her laundry can get done. They are supposed to collect their socks from all around the house because I don't know how your kids do, but I find socks everywhere in my house. Do you know how many times she's done it? Right?
How many? Zero.
You tell me why there are still socks all over my house. And that's just a chore.
Yeah.
Right. But like you said, there are things too. I've found candy wrappers in her room. She knows not to have candy in her room. Why is this child smuggling chocolate into her room?
Yeah.
Children are line steppers, they need constant correction.
Absolutely.
This mindset though, and it's not just that this mindset exists, it's that this mindset is in charge.
Yep.
That says, you know what, they're not fully developed, therefore they cannot be responsible for their actions. And that is not true.
Absolutely. So yeah, overall, I think we're just setting our kids up for failure.
Yeah.
And I get frustrated seeing that on, especially from adults. Sidebar, this is why I think, all politicians, elected officials should have either children or a business of some sort, because you have a different understanding of people.
Yes. There's got to be some understanding.
Yes. And raising people and being a parent, definitely.
Yeah.
I think, I don't want to get in trouble for it, but I think there should be some aspect of having children or something before you're in the
well, especially if you're going to be, if you're going to be writing laws
Yeah.
on regarding children,
Yeah.
but you don't know how they. Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Like, what we got next?
So let's talk a little bit about education.
Yeah.
So we know that
Another
there's
area
been,
that we're failing our kids.
yeah, but speaking of the failing, Kerwin has been obviously, as it turns out, the people who were saying we don't have the money for this were right. We actually don't have the money for this. That's
Yep.
a huge issue. But I wanted to bring up real quick, in terms of education. So I don't know if you saw this, but in Oregon, right, way over there, the governor of Oregon just signed a bill that would eliminate the state testing requirements.
Yes. I saw that.
Yeah, for math. Was it math, literacy? And I had it written down. I wanted to make sure I had it right. It suspended the requirements for those testing out of high school in math, reading, and writing. Now, they said it's only for this year, right? For the 2023-2024 school year. But if you're graduating, they're suspending the testing requirements for math, reading, and writing. And their reasoning is that, well, I mean, as it turns out, they're not admitting this, but they're saying that, because of the pandemic, which is really code for you guys screwed up by keeping everybody home for much longer than they needed to be. These kids are not able to pass these tests. And they're saying it under equity. Like this is an equity issue because you've got a lot of brown and black kids. And by the way, you and I happen to be brown and black. And as far as I know, we can read and write just well. Thank you very much. But that they're saying that, based on equity and the fact that these kids can't pass, that we need to suspend the requirements. What do you think about that?
Well, again, it's one of these things that just really burns me up because, again, like you said it earlier, the soft bigotry of low expectations. And again, like, what are we setting our kids up for, right? And I get really frustrated with it because, one, I set high standards for myself personally. And to see such low standards being set for the next generation I don't know what you're expecting for them, right? I don't know what future you want them to have. You're telling them in order to avoid your accountability, you're saying, okay, let's just pass you along.
Yeah.
Let's just push you. You'll figure it out. Hopefully, if not, we'll support you from government services.
Yeah. Like it is actually, I think it is so cruel to do this to a child, because like you're saying, you are setting them up for failure. So here's what's going to happen. These kids that graduate from high school, they're going to get a diploma. And they're going to be like, oh, awesome. I graduated from high school. They're going to go apply for a job, right? Or they're going to go to college. And then they're going to say, well, they're going to be sitting in a classroom and realizing, I have no idea what is going on. Like I'm in a math class and I don't know what the teacher is talking about. Yes. They are either going to fail that class, they're going to be in remedial math classes because they didn't, or if they are in the workplace, they're going to hopefully get hired because they have a high school diploma.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're going to be sitting in their job and they can't do the work.
Yeah.
And then they're going to get fired.
Do you know that feeling though of just like being completely lost? So, and we're expanding that, right? Like that, that,
you'll appreciate this, Jovani. I was in college and I had to take a computer class. Everybody has to have a computer requirement. And my advisor was like, because I waited till the last semester, obviously. And he was like, I'll just put you in this class. You'll be fine. I walked into the class and I remember I saw this guy who had on this t-shirt and it said something like C++ something. I don't know. I think it was supposed to be a joke.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't even understand this guy's t-shirt. The joke on this guy. I am in the wrong classroom. I was in there for probably the first hour and a half, and I was like, nope, I don't know the basics. I don't know what we're talking about. And it was some C++ class, and I was like, nope, we're not doing that.
There's another shirt I know of. It's like, there's no place like 127.0.0.1.
Is that home?
Yes.
Okay, I only know that because of the saying, but I wouldn't have known. Now, imagine, though, you're not talking about a computer science course.
Yeah.
You are 18 years old, and you need to make rent, and you've got to buy groceries, and you've got to, pay your car insurance. And so you get this job, and then you're sitting there, and you realize, I don't know how to read properly. I can't do the math. I don't know what to do. Yeah. And you are going to get fired.
Yes.
You're not going to have a job, which means you are not going to have a paycheck. And who set you up for this? The adults.
Yeah. I think the worst thing that the schools can do is have low expectations. I think that's one of the lowest. This is one of the most cruel things you can do, right? Because when you have standards, that means you expect that they can reach them. That means you expect that that child has a bright future. You expect that this child can achieve more and do more. And what we're overall saying is that we don't believe you can make it.
Oh, yes.
So we're gonna, keep lowering the standards. And I'll say that this is like one of those like kind of little. I have like all these like little personal philosophies and stuff like that. Like because I think a lot.
You read the Constitution at night, so yes.
I don't speak a lot, but I do think a lot, and so I think this podcast is actually going to help me.
We'll drag it out of you.
Yeah. But I do have this philosophy that saying it's like if somebody tells you have so much potential, to me that's an insult, right? Because that means I'm not living up to be everything that I can be, right? And we're telling these kids you have potential, but we're not helping them get there.
Yeah.
Right. To me, saying I have potential is an insult. It's like it's like if you have a seed, like any kind of flower seed, pumpkin seed, whatever, and you put it in your pocket. That seed has potential, but where is it?
Yeah.
It's in your pocket.
Yeah.
Is it going to grow? No.
Yeah.
Is it going to? So, but if once you start planting that seed, you put it in the ground and give it some light and water and sun and let it grow, it starts to sprout, and now it's realizing its potential. It no longer has potential. It's just growing, and it's growing into everything it's supposed to be. Yeah. So that's why I take that as an insult, right? You're saying I have potential, and potentially we're telling these kids, you have potential. But
well, I think there's a difference, right?
You.
Because I do think that in some cases telling somebody that they have potential can be a good thing if it's something that they haven't been doing, like like the first, like I was telling you earlier, my 6-year-old has started doing piano lessons, and our teacher was saying, like she's very musically inclined, and she'll grow into it. What I think is the big issue, not just in Oregon, but especially here in Baltimore in particular, is that we not only not tell kids that they have potential. That's part of the problem. It's like we don't even believe that they have potential because our policies make it such that you clearly don't think these kids have potential.
Yeah.
If you are saying, like I'll give you an example. Yesterday was back to school night at my kid's school. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's like a parents' night.
Yeah.
They have the parents come in, and then you go sit in your kid's classroom. And I was sitting in like this little 8-year-old's desk, my daughter, and then my 6-year-old's desk.
You fit in there, right?
I mean, yes, but it's still. So I'm sitting in there, and they're walking us through their daily, everything that they do in the classroom and all this stuff, and it's just so the parents know this is what your kid is going to be doing. We meet the teachers and the support staff and everybody. At the beginning, there was a little bit of an assembly with the principal, and he puts up this. He's got this kind of like a what do you call it? Like a presentation, right? Yeah. And he's going through it, and he puts up this stat that says that our kids' elementary school was ranked number 7 and number 8 in the county out of all like 240 something elementary schools in Anne Arundel County. And I'm sitting here like,
so at first you're thinking that's good.
Oh
right?
Man. Yeah. Like, yeah, my kids are going to a top 10 elementary school. Like that's well, first of all, I think I knew that because of the taxes.
Yeah.
But then he tells us the pass rate for the math competency. It's like 51%.
Wow. And
I was like, wait. First of all, how are we in the top 10 and half of our kids are not competent in math? Like that tells me like it's like all of us are not doing great.
Yeah.
And then also it's like, and what do you mean that half of our kids are, and he even said, the principal, to his credit, was like, I know this is not good. There's been a huge decline nationwide in our competency rate as American children.
Wow.
In math. So it's not, but again, that's not to say like, oh, phew, everybody's doing as bad as we are. Like, no. We got some real work that we need to do. And, so my husband and I were talking about this yesterday. It's like, look, I don't know which one of us is going to have to come home earlier, but, and thankfully, like our daughter did pass last year. She was one of the she did, reach the result that we needed. But now I'm like, I am scared.
Yeah.
In general about, the expectations that we're not putting on our children anymore.
Absolutely. And my fear with this too, when we have like numbers like this, of course the education system and the schools, they want to increase those numbers, like make them better. So, what I fear is something that's happening again with the crime stats, right? You just you reclassify or you change the, the standards, and what they're doing in Oregon. What they're doing in Oregon. Oh, you have 100% pass rate now, right? We have 100% graduation this year.
You can't pass the test. Don't worry, we'll get rid of the test. Like
right,
or you could teach them.
yeah. So, and granted, right? Not every kid is going to learn the same way, right? So there is some. It's never going to be 100%, right? But there is going to be the standard can be higher, right?
Yes.
The standard can be higher, right?
Well, and we've got to stop looking at the standards so much and start focusing on the children.
Yes.
You can bring them up,
Yes.
Now, I'll say this, as I know, like there's been a lot of talk about the rates here in Baltimore City being incredibly low, and they are. In some cases they're in the 20s. In some schools, we know they have zero competency. So that is. But I also want the rest of the state to reflect on the fact that we are not that far behind.
Yeah.
Yes, it's much worse here, but we are not that far behind. So this is something that's going to be, all of us have to deal with this issue. But I'll tell you this: when I was driving in, I was listening to Brian Neiman and C4. My old coworkers, and they had on Elric, Mark Elric, who is the Montgomery County executive.
Yep.
And they were talking about this issue, and he actually said something, and I, may the Lord strike me dead, because, I don't think that there's very much that he and I have ever agreed on, but he said that one of the things that he thought we should have done was during the pandemic, when we decided that, our children's education was going to be on back burner for 2 years.
Yep.
His suggestion was actually that instead of passing them, okay, this mess started when you were in the first grade.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you will now start again in the first grade.
Yeah.
Right. And I understand how unpopular that would be, because you'd have a bunch of kids who were graduating, at 20, 19, 20 years old, but they would be competent.
Yeah.
They would be educated. Right. Yeah. And we didn't do that, though. We just said, you know what? Guess what? You're in the third grade now.
I think that's part of it too, right? Nobody's really willing to be the bad guy in those type of situations, right? Because it's not politically expedient. Everybody's going to throw rocks at you. But
welcome to parenthood.
I think we do need more, officials that are willing to take those type of hits, right? Because it takes foresight for something like for people, to say things like that. And we have too many politicians just trying to just toe, not even the party lines, or just whatever.
They want to get elected. They want to get reelected.
Yeah.
They want people to like them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And, as a parent, you are not always going to be liked.
No. And so, I think that's what we really need to see. And we need more, citizens standing up, because even some citizens won't stand up because, oh man, I want my neighbors to like me, or I want I don't want anybody to be mad at me. I'm starting to be more of a bad guy a little bit.
Sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
And listen, I know we're running short of time, but I wanted to bring up one other story, because it's Friday.
Go ahead.
Going into the weekend.
Yeah.
This is kind of more of a little off topic thing. So I know you're a big football fan.
Yeah, huge.
I am a big football fan. There was this little bit of controversy. So Deion Sanders, who we all know, I knew him from the Dallas Cowboy days. Actually, his jersey was my very first jersey.
Wow.
I got it for Christmas when I was like 8 years old, and I had it hanging up on my wall for a long time. So he now coaches Colorado.
Yep.
Right. Colorado has suddenly started doing really well. They beat TCU, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, hey, these guys are here to play. They're playing their rivals, Colorado State, this weekend, and Colorado State is a 23.5 point underdog, I think. Should be an interesting. Okay, so the head coach of Colorado State University was on a podcast, and can you play real quick what he had to say?
Yeah. I sat down with ESPN today, and I don't care if they hear it in Boulder. I told them I took my hat off and I took my glasses off, and I said, when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat and my glasses off. That's what my mother taught me. So
now you know what that's in reference to, right? Anybody who knows prime time, right? Deion Sanders.
Yep.
So
well, so one thing, Prime has been consistent his entire public-facing career.
This man was on the field with chain, like
in college, on the field with chainsaw.
Yes.
Prime has been Prime since he was born.
The kids are extra, is what they're saying. He's always been extra.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Like, so he definitely was trying to throw shade here, right? Throw some shots. I don't know if that helps you win a football game.
Probably not going to help you with that kind of a deficit.
But Prime, like, so look, there's a couple people that I just truly admire right now. I watched Coach Prime and Shannon Sharp when he did the interview. Man, that's what put me on to Deion Sanders' coaching acumen. And then he has the series now on Amazon, Coach Prime, which I still can't make it past the first episode because I'm just like, man, this like he is it. So Deion Sanders and David Goggins are like my two heroes right now in life. But the way Coach Prime is him, and he encourages his players to be them 100% of the time. Like this little jab, but good luck, buddy. Good luck.
Yes, yeah. The weekend should be fun, but and I hear you on that too. And by the way, just to point out, these are two Black coaches.
Yeah.
Actually, the coach of Colorado State University, he was the first, I believe, Black head coach to run that program. And so there's no like racial thing here, but it does show kind of a divide, right? So I was born and raised in the South, and we did have a lot of rules like that.
Yep.
And it's funny because I tend to be a lot more conservative in what I wear, especially in the courtroom and things like that. Would I ever wear a hat and glasses? No, I would not. But like you said, Deion Sanders has been Deion Sanders since the beginning of time. He has always had this big persona.
Yep.
He has always, been extra like this. And
so what the coach is saying is that Deion doesn't have any home training.
That's what he's trying to say.
He's saying that Deion doesn't have any home training, which I look, like I said, the big reason why I admire Deion is because he has set the bar high. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's clearly he has some home training right now. It may not, come out in the appearance, the sunglasses,
his style is different
because if you're indoors, you generally do take your hat off. But like you said, with the courtrooms, things have changed. I mean, people are going to work now in sweatpants, and I don't get it, but Deion has been him, and that's where we are now. Is this is America. Like, you can be you. It's not necessarily a sign of disrespect or anything to have sunglasses on or a hat on indoors. He's being him, right? And Deion has high standards. He's going to tell you like it is. He's going to be truthful and honest with you. He's going to encourage you to be better. He's going to encourage his team to be better. Clearly, is what we see. What the Buffaloes are doing now. Yeah. Like I said, it's one of those things that you're trying to throw people off their game. I think Deion did say he may have been a little bit offended by it, or took offense to it. Not necessarily, it gets you off a game.
Made it a little personal.
Yeah, took it personally. But
again, that is also Deion Sanders. I mean, but when you think about what he's done with this football team, right? Because now I will say as a caveat, I have a solid 8-year amnesia in my football, especially my college football memory, because I was having babies, and so there was a solid 8 years I don't remember. I don't remember Colorado. Last time I remember Colorado being good was when I'm pretty sure 9th grade.
I didn't even know there was a university in Colorado.
They were good, but that was also back in the day when Nebraska was really good and all this stuff. And so the fact that he became this head coach, I know that there was some controversy with him leaving the HBCU and then going to Colorado, but what he's been able to do there and the enthusiasm that he's brought to that school takes me back. But it's look, dude, you're a 20+ underdog in this game. So at this point, good luck to you, but I think Deion Sanders is just going to be him.
Yeah, I hope they score one time. Colorado State.
Well, I mean, we'll see. Look, I'm excited. I love the weekend. I love college. I love that all of this is back. So anyways, Jovani, this is I think this is great. We are going to be doing this on a weekly basis. So the audience knows this is the P.E.A.C.E podcast.
Yes.
A lot of what you are going to hear are things, Jovani and I are out in the community as part of this organization, P.E.A.C.E. It's People for Elected Accountability and Civic Engagement. And that means that we have to be out in the community, right? We are talking to people. It's not us coming into the community and saying, this is what you need. It is us gathering what the community is saying.
And this is what we hear.
Yes, and this is what we hear. And so, I know we were able to, before I came on, you were able to get term limits passed. I mean, it
wasn't just me. It was a team.
Yes, but, Jovani was the president of this organization. And I think, we give credit where credit is due. And that also extends to the residents of Baltimore City who voted overwhelmingly, was 73% in favor of term limits. And so what we're trying to do is bring that next question K, after hearing from the community. And so a lot of what you're going to hear on this podcast are things that we've heard from community residents, stories that we've been told, feelings, what are people thinking? What are people saying? And that's what you and I are going to discuss. So, I look forward to doing this every week. And Jovani?
Yeah, I look forward to being here and working with you. And I sound like I'm on an interview. But, I really am a funny guy. Like
he is.
But no, this is going to be great because we are, like I said, just listening to the community and wanting to, bring that back and like, because we hear a lot of stuff, right? And I don't think we get to share enough of what we're hearing. And this is, an avenue to do that. And, hopefully, just follow along, make sure you subscribe on, all our channels, follow the Facebook page. Follow us on, go to our website, peacebaltimore.com, and, share your story, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is another avenue where, an outlet where you can share, we'll talk about it. We'll get it into the, in front of the elected officials' hands, in front of the, the citizens of Baltimore.
And the media.
And the media. And ultimately, I want to share this with people because I just want to see Baltimore win, right? I believe Baltimore is a great place. We have the tools to be successful. We have the people, but we just have to put things in order. And I love this place, man. This is home. This is where I planted my flag. This is where I met my wife, had my kids. So I just believe the great things to come in Baltimore City. But there's some things, there's some challenges that we have to overcome, but I think we can do it.
Yep.
So make sure you tune in next week. We're going to have some sponsors coming up pretty soon, and let's make it happen.
All right, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend.